Hello and welcome to foggy Kirkwall Airport. And actually I think the sun is about, this is only a low cloud or fog layer and the sun's about to break through. So once we get airborne, it should be, I think, in clear skies. We're in Flight Sim 2020 and this is the default King Air 350. With a custom livery, so it's a Scottish Air Ambulance Gamma Aviation livery. This is a bit fictional because it's only B200s that do the air ambulance, and this is a King Air 350. But I like the livery, so we're going for that. And the aim today is to recreate the flight, achieve the flight that I started in an X-Plane video a few videos ago in the C90 mod, where we had engine failure and didn't make it all the way to Stornoway. Today we're going to fly Kirkwall to Stornoway and try and do the runway 18 arrival, VOR-DME arrival. And another reason for doing this today is that I'm amazed at how well the King Air 350 in MSFS flies now after the recent sim update from a few days ago. So I'd given up on turboprops in general really in Flight Sim 2020, and especially the King Air after launch, because it was just a joke really. The engine parameters, the flight model, everything was all wrong. A lot of stuff didn't work, and to be fair, a lot of stuff still doesn't work. There's a lot of things in the cockpit that aren't implemented, but with the recent turboprop, the turboprop engine model fixing has got more, there's more updates to come on that, but the initial ones made a huge difference. As I think you'll see, the performance of the plane is pretty good. It's fairly close to I think what it should be. The flight model is fantastic. It handles really, really well. It slows down really well. There's still a couple of things missing. You can't feather the props, but you can change the RPM correctly. You can put them into reverse, but you just don't see all the animations. But that is coming. So basically, I think this sim now has reached a point where I don't think I personally will be using X-Plane again. What with this aircraft, the G36 Bonanza, just in the default form now, it's really good. And the citation jets, that's plenty for me now, and the improvements are just going to keep on coming. As commercial developers are starting to do prop planes now, there's even more impetus for us over to fix the remaining prop modelling deficiencies. So it's only going to get better, but we'll see what you think, see if you agree with me. But I think certainly this King Air is now very enjoyable to fly. So this is, as I say, it's the default. I have got a few mods installed, but nothing that changes the engine modelling or the flight modelling. So obviously I've got the livery, and I will leave links to all these in the description. The livery you can get from flightsim.to. I have a mod that fixes a couple of switches, does nothing I say to the flight model or engines. And I have the GTN 750 because the avionics in this is such a mismatch anyway. Yes, they're meant to be Proline avionics with the glass screens, but they're sort of a Garmin G3X or G3000 in the sim by default, but it doesn't really have many features. So the 750, as I think you'll see, which slots in here, makes a lot of sense. Right, so without too much further ado, let's get preparing for the flight. I won't do all the first flight of the day stuff, partly because most of it's probably not implemented. The 350 fuel system, I think it's got shut-off valves. Okay, if there are fuel shut-offs, I'm not sure where they are on this one. They're not in the same place as the C90, or else they're not modelled. But anyway, ignoring that, let's get started up. So I'm going to put the battery on. I'm going to put the beacon light on. And let's do, I just wonder whether we can do a flight plan. Let's get an engine started before we do the flight plan. There is external power switch, but I don't think we'll bother using it. So we've got plenty of fuel. Let's go for right engine start, so let's make sure all our levers are in the correct positions. Fuel cut off, props forward, We're going to start the right engine. Before we do that, let's turn on the engine anti-ice. Stop any the inertial separators, stop any debris or whatever being sucked in whilst we're on the ground. And I think we're ready to start. So one slight disadvantage with integrating the 750 is that you lose the engine. Normally, until you switch this screen on, you get engine parameters here. So we have to turn both screens on to see our torque and ITT, but it's only a small drawback. So let's get the right engine starter going. And we're looking for N1 here of about 12%. As a 750 springing into life. You'll also notice that around about 12%, the prop kind of clicks into life, all the, the prop drive. So that's plenty there. So let's introduce fuel up to low idle. And now we're just checking for a good start. Make sure the ITT doesn't go too high. We're looking for N1 of 50%, and then we'll switch off the starter and turn on the generator. That's 50, so right starter can come off. The click spot on this is quite difficult. Right generator on. Make sure everything's stable, and we'll go high idle because we want to charge the battery back up. And we can just check here that the right generator is outputting some volts. Isn't really doing anything with the amps, but never mind that for now. And in fact, since we're going to be doing, let's get the left engine started before we do anything else. Flight plan won't take long. We can do more about the arrival procedure when we're in there. That's just a caution for inertial separators being on. So left engine start, let's check it's clear. We've got the beacon on, we got the inertial separators, fuel cut off. Left engine starter. Again, we're looking for 12%. And you should see the prop start to turn. About 11%. There we go. Oil pressure warnings. Yeah, that's fine for now. We'll introduce fuel. Again, we'll watch for the ITT coming up on the N1. And again, we're looking for 50% to turn off this starter. There we go. And left gen can come on. Cool. Okay, we can bring both engines back to low idle now. Let's do our flight plan. So, flight plan is Kirkwall, EGPA, and we are going to EGPO, which is Stornoway. And we're going to fly direct routing, and the only en route waypoint I'll put is the STN VOR, because we need to kind of get there to do to do the arrival procedure. I mean, we'll switch to the VOR itself, but we'll just put it in there for now. STN Sierra Tango November. We pick the one in the UK, and that's it. And if we go to map view, you'll see we can this is track up at the moment, so it might look a little bit confusing, but you can see there we can almost zoom out all the way from our route across the top of north of Scotland to Kirkwall to Stornoway. What I normally do is leave this one on a sort of more of a zoomed out scale, and then if you hit split here, I like having this map for when you get closer to the arrival in the airport. I usually put that on 10 miles, and I find this to be a pretty good setting. Now, we want to be on GPS mode. The way that this whole sort of Garmin ProLine thing, it's a bit weird. The way you change mode and set up VOR bearings and stuff, it's actually click anywhere in this sort of HSI indicator. We change the source here to be FMS, and we'll leave nav1 as a bearing pointer for now, and that's fine. And something else I'm going to do, that was a caution. What have we got cautions for? P2H, yeah, we'll turn on those, a runway and inertial separator. Yeah, that can go off when we get to the runway. That's fine for now. We will, what will we do? Set up barometers. Now, the mod that does the cockpit switches, one of the things it fixes is this knob here actually changes the barometer on the PFD. This one's independent anyway, but it didn't do the PFD, and you couldn't really do the PFD before. The other thing I've got is keyboard bindings as well. I find that handier. But for now, we'll just auto set the altimeter. And we want to figure out the runway we're using here in Kirkwall. So wind, according to the little nav map, is 135 at 6, so it'll be runway 09. So let's get the heading set up for 09. So it'll be a 09 departure and then a right turn after takeoff. Ah yes, the flight director that was going to do. So if we turn the flight director on, we'll go for nav mode. So initially we won't turn the autopilot on until we've got up and got stabilized, but we'll use the flight director to do the nav for us, to guide us, and we'll hit toga, which should give us like a 10-degree pitch up on the flight director. I've got a joystick button bound to toga. Okay, so I think we're pretty much ready to go. Heaters will turn on. Actually, one thing we should do is set our cruising altitude. Now, how far is it to Stornoway? Oh, is that 73 miles total? So it's not very far. So let's say we want to descend, I don't know, 20 miles. We've got 20 miles to descend. Divide by 3, 7, 8, 9. I mean, we're not really going to want to go too high here. The King Air can go. So if we were at 12,000 feet, we'd need 30 miles to descend. That's nearly half here. I think we'll maybe go, and we're going west, so we want an even flight. So we'll go for 12,000. I mean, this thing can go up to 35,000 feet. It's really good, and you get really good fuel economy and ground speed if you go that high. We won't go that high today. We'll maybe go a bit higher. Let's see if we can hit 14. Go for 14,000. So we'll preset our desired altitude, and we'll set the cabin pressure. So essentially we want to wind this all the way back, and this, for some reason, the animation on this is painfully slow, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of way to speed it up. I mean, yeah, we might as well just set the cabin altitude to 500 feet and leave it there, because we're not going very high, so that'll be fine. And then we don't need to touch it for arrival either. Okay, I think that's everything ready. We're not going to use... Well, should we use a notch of flaps? I mean, the runway here is not amazingly long. So I think I will go one notch of flaps for takeoff. And the trim we want slightly up. And other than that, I think we're ready. Okay, so let's get ready to taxi. So we want taxi lights on. See if I can get head tracking to turn on, just for the taxi. Okay, either way we're gonna take, oh no, we can turn right without particularly taking anyone out. So let's do that. Let's release the parking brake. Do need a reasonable amount of power to get it moving. Once it's moving, it's quite controllable on the taxi. Apologies to that van. Let's head off into the fog. Actually, as it's so foggy, I guess we should put our nav lights on. Let's put our reco lights on. Also, I wonder whether we should turn prop de-icing on as well. Not all the de-icing works. Randomly the prop one does before takeoff, just in case. So we're heading for runway 09 here. And yeah, I'll say it's the speed in taxi is quite controllable with just the power lever. You don't need to brake. We do have our props full forward. We'll do a prop RPM check nearer the runway. So we'll just come to a stop then at the next hold line. Do some final checks. In fact, there's the runway there. Just put the parking brake on. Let me just check the actual METAR, because I think, because I've had fog reported before and never actually seen it. This could be a first. Yep. Fog broken 001, overcast 003. So it's pretty much spot on the real weather. Right, okay. Let's get some RPM in. Go about sort of 50% torque. And let's check the prop RPM changes. Yep, that looks good. Back to max. Let's turn off the engine anti-ice and take off. We'll put a pitot heat on. I'm going to put prop de-ice on, just because I'm not sure of the weather. We'll have the landing strobe and landing lights on, and we'll set the transponder as we're about to enter the runway. Okay, we're good to go, and we've already done flaps. Let's just double confirm. Trim and flaps. Yep, both look good. So with the one notch of flaps, I'm going to rotate around about 100 rather than 110. So this should be runway 09. I just confirm the heading, and that is correct. So it's going to be is it going to be a right turn or a left turn after takeoff? Let's go for a right turn. Okay, so we're going to go full power and then just pull the power lever back a bit so we don't go in the red on the torque. And you're looking to rotate about 100. Just watch that torque. It's airspeed coming alive. Let's keep the advanced power lever slightly more. It's 80 knots. That's 100. We're going to rotate. Dub the brakes. Put the gear up. Let's try and follow the flight director. We'll put the flaps up once we get a bit more. Let's get up to about 500 feet before we do any turning, or before we put the flaps up. Flight director is trying to tell us to turn right to go on the nav course. Right, flaps up. Need to pull back on the pitch a bit to compensate. Let's get into a turn. Let's just try and get trimmed here. We want to keep our speed sort of about 140, 150 at this point for climb. There we go, we're out of the fog. Nice blue sky. Ignore the flight director telling us to turn left. It will come back and tell us to turn right soon. Ooh, we are rather drastically over pitching there. And overturning. Let's just get back. To something sensible. There we go. And I'm going to bring the props back now to 1600 RPM. Just watch the torque as you do that. It's like definitely overbanked the turn there. Okay. Sort of straighten up now, and we'll go. Let's just get the trim steady. And we're in nav mode already. We'll go flight level change, and we'll engage the autopilot. And the landing lights can come off. I think the reco lights can come off for now. The nav lights, I'll turn them off as it's a bright, clear day. We'll go standard on the altimeter, so we're going up to 14,000 feet. So here we go, using the keyboard keys. I'm going to go 2992, and on this one as well. As you can see, we're getting a pretty good rate of climb here. And with the the fixes to the turboprop engine modelling, you won't really see it as much up to 14,000 feet, but the torque and the ITT will drop off with increasing altitude, as it should do. And that's more like it, 106, yeah, 106 miles. So actually, I think we should probably go a bit higher than 14k here. Let's take it up to 18. Let's assume we've been cleared to 18. And I'm just going to bring the target speed down a little bit, so we climb a bit faster. Let's drop the target speed down to about 160. I'm going to zoom out here so we can see where we are. Yeah, it's just pretty low in patchy cloud cover, really. I think the weather at Stornoway is a lot better. Let's have a look. So the METAR says, yeah, few at 028 VFR, and the wind is 180 at 12 knots, so runway 18 is the one we want. We're coming at 10,000 feet. I've already turned the record lights off. We've already done the altimeter on standard. Auto feather we should have armed. It's not modelled, but we should be turning that off now. Cabin isn't really needing to. We're going higher now, actually. So let's sort our cabin altitude out. We're going to go to 18, aren't we? There we go. And hopefully we'll see the cabin climb rate. Engine power's still fine. You can see the north coast over there now. And you can see the torque is actually slowly dropping off now, down to 91, so if I want to I can add a bit more power, get it back up, say 93, 94%. We're still climbing strongly. when we reach cruise height, we'll pull the props back to 1500 RPM. So we're currently climbing at 1600. I think prop anti-ice can come off now. Let's get the VOR tuned in while we've got time. So we're going to need two. Actually, we're going to need to use this approach needs two nav radio. It needs both nav radios working actually. Which one should we use for which? Let's go VOR1 being the STN VOR. So over here we can do nav1. Which is actually a good point. I'm not sure how you do nav2 on this. So we might have to do that. Let's get nav1 set. So it's at 1.115.1. And as a backup, did that take? Yeah, I think it did. Let's just check. Yeah, 1151. And as a backup, we'll put the localizer. Which is find the localizer frequency. 110.9. Okay. We need, as I say, we need nav2 really as well. Cabin pressure. Yeah, that's weird. I'm not sure. I sometimes get that cabin pressure warning, but it usually goes away. Actually, we're reaching now. We're about to reach our target cruise height. Again, we probably could have gone higher than this, but it'll do. We've got to remember we need about 50 miles to descend from this, so actually, yeah, it gives us 30 miles at cruise. It's probably okay. So Alt's been captured now. So I'm going to bring the prop RPM back to 1500. So there's a smaller prop speed range in the 350 and lower RPM. I guess it must have bigger blades than the 200 or the 90. And yeah, ITT is down a bit, but the extra torque has meant we're from the lower RPM has meant our torque is still fine. So there we go. Well, what's our grind speed now? 250 and increasing, so not too shabby. Let's try and get. How am I going to do that? I've got to remember now how to get the other nav radios. So can I do it on here? Oh, how am I going to do this? Maybe I do it through menu. No, that's just the map menu. Let's go back and let's do because this is only nav1. It's not done through the transponder page. It's not done through the com page. Ah, it's done through here. Yeah, this is the weird one on here. You can always go back to map, and at the bottom you've got flight plan and procedures. If you click that, it brings up this menu. So let's do nav2. Nav2 we want to be on the ILS, which is 110.9. So we'll use that for our final approach. So active freak 110.9, and let's just go back and check that nav1 is set up properly. Active 1151 with 110.9 as a backup. Cool, fine. So we should be good to go. Nav1 Currently set to the STM VOR, 77 miles. That's great. That's good. Okay, we should be sorted. The only thing we need to do when we get nearer is when we switch to use the VOR. Are we still in nav mode? Yeah, we are. I think. Yes, FMS is showing. When we switch to nav mode, we'll do that this way. Bearing pointers are already turned on. Now then, let's have a look at the arrival. So let's just switch to Navigraph for a second. We're happily in cruise at the moment. Again, see our ground speed's now 272 knots, and that's with a sort of a side cross sort of headwind as well. Running quite nicely. Navigraph charts. Okay. So this is the runway 18 VOR DME arrival. We are going to be approaching in this way basically from the northeast. So we're going to arrive at the STM VOR. Going to enter the hold just for a course reversal. So I'm going to do that by coming in and entering with a parallel entry to the hold. So when we reach the STM VOR, we'll track out on 140 degrees for 1 minute, and then we'll turn back into the VOR, and then we'll head out on the 04 radial. We'll be monitoring the distance using Nav2 receiver, because it's got to pick up the distance from STW, which is the localizer. When we get to D9 from that, we'll turn left to try and get onto. We'll basically turn left and try and stay 11 miles away. It'll be about a 70-degree turn or something. And then when we reach the 346 radial from the STN VOR, then we'll turn in. Because don't forget, this is a localizer, so it doesn't give you it doesn't give you bearings. It only gives you distance basically, and it will give you the approach course obviously, but it doesn't give you. You can't use it like a VOR. You can't just line yourself up on any radial. So that's why you've got the radial from here to do your turning point. So 346. I always like to work on outbounds, as we'll be on the 004. Oh, that is outbound. I'm being silly. Yes, so we just turned for 346. That's fine. Okay, so the first thing we need to worry about initially is arriving at the VOR at 3,000 feet and entering the hold. And then we can descend to 2,000. Oh, well, we'll do that slowly. So just two things we need to do. We need to get our target altitude down to 3,000 feet. So do that now. And we need to work out when to start the descent. It's not super critical because we can be above 3,000 feet in the course reversal at the hold. So we're currently at. There's no VNav. I don't think there's VNav yet on the GTN 750, or maybe there is, but it's only in the premium version, or it may not be implemented. Yeah, there's no VNav. I can't remember which way it is, so we'll just have to do it. We'll just have to do it manually. So yeah, we need to descend 18,000, 3,000. That's 15,000 feet lost times 3. It's 45. We need 45 miles away, and we'll do it. And with the descent rate to give us the 3-degree slope will be 5 times our ground speed. So 45 miles. We're 59 miles away at the moment. I'll tell you what else I'm going to do. I'm going to switch to the VOR, so it should be within range. I think STN's quite powerful and we're quite high, so we should pick it up. So we'll sync the heading first. Go to heading mode. Over here. Switch to VOR1. Get rid of you. Let's line the course up. Again, keyboard bindings to change the bearing, or you can use the course knobs. Let's go back now to nav mode. We're now tracking the VOR rather than FMS. and we've got the distance readout directly, 55. So I say again, we're 45, so 10 miles time we will start our descent, and 5 times 270 is what, 1300. We'll go 1300 feet per minute. So you can see on the map here that we're sort of approaching sort of Cape Wrath now. Let's just zoom in one click. And then we're out over the sea to Stornoway. So, you know, we're halfway at least. Visually at least, look, it looks like halfway. Let's have a look outside. Don't forget though, we got to start descending soon. Very smart aircraft. In fact, there is the island of Stornoway. Oh well, the island of Stornoway, island of Lewis. So in fact, if we just sit up a bit in the cockpit, yeah, we can see it. It's beginning to look quite close already. Okay, so we're now 4 miles away from top of descent. We're off the FMS line slightly, so just to make it look nice, I think I'm just going to adjust the course slightly to the right. Oops. So that we track a bit more on the magenta line, just for OCD purposes. It doesn't really matter, as long as we're heading directly for the VOR, we can arrive within a few to go. We're going to make it, you know, we're going to enter the hold with a parallel entry anyway from this bearing, or you know, these bearings. Okay. 1 mile to go. Let's just sync heading back up. So I'm going to engage VS. I don't usually use these. I've used keyboard bindings for the VS adjustment. There we go, 45. So I'm going to go for, was it 1300 feet per minute? Now, I don't want our ground speed to increase too much, so I am just going to pull the power back so we don't actually go any faster in terms of airspeed. The STN VOR is actually on this little well, it's not really an island, it is connected, a little peninsula. It is connected with a causeway and a road just there. And then the airport's sort of just here on the point where this little causeway connects. So the VOR we're heading for currently is on this bit of land here. As I say, when we reach it, we'll turn outbound. Just to remind ourselves. We reach the VOR, we're going to turn left, 140 degrees outbound, 1 minute, and then back in. Now, there is a timer on this thing, which I've never used. I might try using it. Keep the heading synced because we're going to need to use heading mode when we reach the VOR. Great view here of the northwest coast. Some of the mountains there. The Northwest Highlands. Looking a little bit rounded from this altitude, but you can really see the jagged coastline all the way heading south and down to sort of Skye, I think possibly that is down there. Anyway, how are we doing on the descent? We've got 35, we're 30 miles away now. We've got another 12,000 feet to lose. Yeah, we're fine. I mean, as I say, we can really be above. We don't want to in fact, we don't want to over descend. I might cut the descent rate to 1200. I'll zoom this one in a bit so we can see how things are looking when we get closer. There is a pan mode. In fact, we're in pan mode here. If you want to, pan mode also includes a direct to option. Let's come back out of pan mode for now. And so far as I've experienced, in fact, it's probably because it isn't modelled, but this one doesn't catch fire on descent into Stornoway. Yeah, I don't think I can go back to X-Plane now. You know, the recent performance updates on this have made the sim run really well. The weather is really good. The terrain rendering, weather engine is brilliant, and I say the aircraft. Okay, there's not anywhere near like the same range. The default aircraft don't have everything modelled necessarily, although they've probably got enough to be enjoyable. But there's more and more commercial aircraft arriving now. I think this is very much on the cusp of a turning point. You know, where all the developers are going to be developing for Flight Sim 2020, and the engine itself, the simulator itself, is capable of supporting everything the devs want. It's not there yet, and then but it's definitely, I think, reaching a turning point. How are we doing with Stornoway arrival? There we go. It almost looks like an ATR or a Q400 from this sort of angle with the high tail. Obviously the 200 has the high tail as well. So nice clear weather at Stornoway, good visibility. Which means I'm going to be tempted to fly the final approach visually, just because I find that localizer only approaches are a pain to do with the autopilot, because the only option you've really got is vertical speed mode. So with a localizer only, you get precision guidance for lining up with the runway, but you don't get a glide slope, and there's no glide slope equipment at Stornoway. So you have to descend manually, and then you're in VS mode. You have to keep adjusting your vertical speed as you slow down. I say, okay, once you can see the pappies, it's not too bad. You then can't preset your altitude for the mist. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'll try and do it, because obviously if the weather was bad, you'd have to go with the instrument approach fully. So I'll try it and see how I get on. But I say initially, we're talking about the arrival at the VOR, course reversal, back in, out this way, turn in, and then in for the final approach. It's pretty much how the approach works. The flight plan obviously is not geared up with. I mean, I think we could put the approach in. I'm not sure if it can fly arcs. It would probably just approximate them, but I'd rather do it with the VORs. That way we kind of demonstrated using the FMS and the nav radios. How far are we now? 14 miles. We still got a fair way to descend, but got plenty of time. So the only real sort of final constraint we have is here, where we need to really be sort of at 2,000 feet and 185 knots for this sort of base turn, really. So we can be above 2,000, above 3,000, you know, here. So what we're looking for is the VOR needle to flip Actually, I think that should have a nav. Should have a bearing pointer on them. Let's just double check. Yeah, nav 1 bearing pointer and nav 2. Actually, nav 2 is probably going to cause us potentially going to cause us confusion. Although nav 1. So the nav 1 pointer is in blue, but it's lined up with the green at the moment, obviously, so you can't see it. Nav 2 is pointed to STW. That might come in handy, we'll leave it. I should tell you what, we'll get this ready for the timer. You can see the mountains of Harris now appearing. Again, looking a bit rounded from the distance. So the heading we need to turn to, let's just sync our heading up again, is 140 degrees. So it's a left turn to 140 degrees once we reach. The only disadvantage really of descending as late as possible is it's harder to get your speed control sorted out, although this thing will slow down fine just by pulling the power back, so I don't really need to worry about that. .8 miles now to the VOR. Yeah, we'll probably leave it on this sort of zoom level. So again, we're going to arrive here, turn around, back out this way, and then in. That's the plan anyway. That's the theory. You can actually see where we are on the Navigraph chart now, arriving from this direction. So I am now going to I'm going to sync the heading one more time. I'm going to go heading mode so we're ready to turn. So again, we're looking for the needle. Sorry, it's 1.4. I'm looking at the wrong distance radar here. Distance to the VOR is what's important. And when this needle pings round, or the bearing pointer pings round, we'll start the turn. Yep, I think we're over it now. So I'm going to turn to 140 degrees. It's interesting that we just completely kind of lost the information. There's the bearing pointer there pointing in the opposite direction, so we have crossed over. And once we're wings level at 140 degrees, they'll start the timer and do 1 minute leg on the hold, course reversal. And that's us coming wings level, so let's start the timer. It's the first time I've ever used this timer. Again, there's the northwest of the mainland. Nice sea colourings. I see we're plenty of a descent rate. In fact, I can shallow that off now. Let's bring it right back to say 500 feet per minute. Let's bear in mind our timer as well. So when we turn, we get a 180 degree turn, and we're just going to head straight back to the VOR. I mean, we want an outbound course of 004, so that's what we should aim for. Doesn't need to be too exact here, especially since we're over the sea. We're not going to hit anything. Right, 1 minute. I'm going to make a 180. And let's set a course of 004 just to give us some guidance, because that's now the outbound course that we want. from the VOR. And we're reaching our target altitude now, so we've just got to be a bit careful with airspeed. I'll probably keep the airspeed around about 210, and I'm going to set the next altitude of 2000, which we want to come down to. So if a quick look again on the navgraph chart, you can see that we've come in here, come around here, turning back 180. We now want to head for the VOR. We can actually use the course pointer for that. So let's head towards it. Just keep our speed up, and we've got a limit of 185 when we get to the base turn, so 200 seems fine for now. Should be able to see the airport over there. Well, we could have done a visual approach really, but I wanted to try the procedure today. Now we're coming up to the VOR, so we want to be sort of careful here, because we need to start thinking about we're going to be heading out on a 004 course, and we don't want to leave the turn too late, so let's do that turn now, I think. And here we are getting onto the 004 outbound. Now I'm going to go VS again and come down about 700 feet per minute. Normal sort of glide slope descent rate. Keep that speed back, so we've got to be at 185 soon. We can actually get rid of this now. And go back in nav mode. I just follow this 004. We need to turn at 8.8 is the turning point. Or actually D9. D9 from STW. So this is STW. So we're getting the distance from that. And we turn about 70 degrees because we want to turn onto an 11. It's quite a shallow arc. Let's get our speed back. We're meant to be at 185. Shall I say D9 STW? So we'll sync up our heading. 7.3. We're nearly at 2000, which is fine. We can stay there then until we begin our final approach. Sync the heading one more time. Heading mode, so we're ready for the turn. D9, that's 8.1. You actually come a fair way out here. Nice looking beach there on the left. Ooh, we should sync our barometer at altimeter. Should have done that on the descent. I always forget that. Hopefully we can correct. D9, let's turn about 70 degrees. We're looking for 11 nautical miles from STW. And then the turn-in heading we want is 346 degrees on VOR1. So if we get that back to the course, 346, it would help if I could see it. Here we go. So two things we want now. We want to stay 11 miles out, so we don't want to turn in anymore. And when we cross over the 346 radial, then we want to turn in to 178 degrees for our final approach course, and we'll switch to VOR2. There's quite a lot to do on this one. Yeah, 11, 10.5, 10.6. We're fine. When we turned in a bit much, but we can stay. We're pretty close to D11, so that's okay. Just quickly where we are on the chart, so you can see we're here. And we're coming up to cross the turning radial. I'm going to turn in slightly because we're now 11 miles out. We don't really want to go any further. We're about to turn in anyway. Okay, let's go 178 degrees. And we'll switch to VOR2, which is the localizer. I don't think we've got any control over the bearing for the localizer. That's fine. Just get onto an approach heading here. Now then, we should also be thinking about things like, well, we'll put landing lights on when the gear's down. Let's put our record lights on. Auto feather we could arm again if it worked. There's the airport down there, is it? So hopefully we'll intercept the localizer soon. Now let's get the final approach. So D6.1 from STW is when we should be descending with a 3-degree glide. We're going to have to do that ourselves though, we're not going to get a glide slope. The localizer is coming in now, so I'm going to switch. I'll switch to approach, but as I say, we won't get a glide slope. So we're going to have to use VS. So we're going to need to come down to minimums, which is 390. So let's get. We can't do that on approach mode. Let's just go back to nav. Oh. Okay, hang on, sorry. We probably could have done that on approach, but we'll stay on. Let's go back to approach. Put the altitude down to 400. So we're ready to use VS mode. I'm not entirely convinced we're very locked on the localizer, to be honest with you, but D6.1 is when we're supposed to start descending, so let's get VS in. 6.6, 6.5, 3. I'm going to start now. I'm going to come down about 800 feet per minute initially. I'm going to start slowing down. If I'm going to drop the gear, and I'm going to drop initial flaps. I'm going to turn the landing lights on. And we want to get our speed down really to we're above the glide here, so I'm just gonna, we should be at well, the diagram doesn't really tell you. It just tells you to follow 3-degree glide slope with sort of 120 knots is 600 feet per minute. We're going a bit faster than that, so it's lucky we're kind of visual really. Let's get the speed back now. I'm going to just take over in a minute. If we get it back to below, I think 158 is the final approach flap speed, and you probably generally want to be around 140-ish for the final flaps. We are a bit high. I'm just going to increase our descent rate slightly. I'll switch off the autopilot in a minute. In fact, let's do that now, and let's put final flaps in. Yeah, we're back on the pappies now, so I'm going to take over. So the autopilot is now off. I'm looking for 115, so I'm going to putting some power back in here. I don't want to get too low, which we are already. Don't want to get any lower than that. That's fine. A few more trees around than there probably should be, but apart from that, looking pretty good. They're a bit high now. They're just correcting. And the wind is dead on ahead, so this is a perfect conditions for landing, really. Drop power back to idle. It's looking along the runway now. Let it come down. We're down. I don't think we're going to need to bother with reverse. For some reason my head tracking has decided to stop working. Give me just a second to get it back. That's disused anyway, so let's carry on. As we're on the runway now, we can turn the engine anti-ice back on in case we pick up any debris. And we can turn off pitot heat now. I'm going to get the flaps up. So I think we're going to have to go a fair way down the runway now before we get another exit. There's one here, I think. Should have really checked the seem to have some kind of runaway power condition. There we go. Okay. We are now going backwards, which is interesting. I think it must have ended up in reverse. If you pull the power lever back through the gate, that then flicks it into reverse mode, and if you then move it forward, you're then controlling the amount of reverse thrust, reverse power. So you got to remember what you've just where you've moved it. Okay. Quite sure where we can pull in here. Let's assume we can go next right, and we also should now turn the taxi light on. I'm going to turn the strobes, landing light off. Transponder can go back to standby. Let's go and assume that we can park our air ambulance over here. We're only on a positioning flight anyway. This is not a medical emergency. And we will park up here. So parking brake can come on, taxi light can come off, avionics can come off, condition levers back to cut off, Props back to feather. We turned off the heaters, turn off the gens. Engines are shutting down, cancel the warnings. And the props do actually look like they're feathered from inside. Well, sometimes it depends what angle you look at, but then from outside they don't. Anyway, hopefully that's something that will be fixed in a future update. But there we are. So I found that quite an enjoyable flight from Kirkwall to Stornoway, and I don't know what you think, but I certainly think this aircraft is very flyable now. It handles very well. The sort of speed and power characteristics seem pretty decent. Climbs well. The avionics are a bit of a complete mismatch, but with the 750 in it, it's pretty usable, really. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.